If you do not have a positive update, there really is no reason to give an update unless there is something. So, for example, if you're out with an ankle sprain and then during rehab, a barbell falls on your wrist and you break your wrist, you have a new injury, we'll update that to the media and to the fans. But what Dave Roberts did is he said, yeah, Blake Snell did a throwing session and, quote, he didn't feel great. I'm sorry, that's not an update that's required. Now, sometimes the throwing sessions are done in front of the media, but not if you're a smart team. The stadium is not open to media until a certain time. If you want one of your injured players to do a throwing session in private, you have him come at 11 o'clock. They do a throwing session. He's dressed and done throwing by the time the media comes. And I'm not trying to keep the media from information, but there's just no reason. And if Blake Snell does a session and then doesn't feel well, because that's what happens, you do a throwing session, then you go back into the training room. The training people look you over, you get dressed, then you report how it went to the trainer. The trainer reports to the manager and the GM, who gets it to the president and the owner. And that's how you get your update even before you see it on the piece of paper at the end of the day. Why? Because the day before, there would be a piece of paper that says, Blake Snell's got a throwing session tomorrow. So the president of the team would say, hey, how did that go? And I don't want to wait to get that night's report. So I call down and I find out how it went, or I get an incoming call. But there really is no reason after playing catch. It wasn't even off the bullpen. He wasn't throwing live BP. He was literally having a catch like with your dad. When you've got shoulder inflammation and or Tommy John or forearm tightness or flexor, whatever you've got in your arm, whatever you've got in your leg, a player knows it immediately how it feels. Literally, after one toss, you can say to yourself, the player can say, wow, this does not feel normal. After one jog around the bases, if you're dealing with a strained hamstring, the player would say, I feel it. It's catching a little bit. And then we'll evaluate like after one. If you've got an oblique and you take one swing, you know how the oblique is feeling because you know if you're compensating for the oblique by not swinging out of your tuchus. So it didn't take long for Blake Snell to know what was going on with this throwing session. And then Dave Roberts talks about it. I'm asking, what's the strategy? Is the strategy to get other teams to try to trade you more pitchers? Is the strategy to get your own pitchers who are pitching now to realize they're going to be in the rotation a little longer than they expected because Snell's not coming back as soon as maybe people had thought? Nothing of that needed to be public. Dave Roberts told us the reason why we told Blake Snell to shut it down when he didn't feel great is we wanted to let him know it's about October. It's not about April. Do you think that they talked to Blake Snell about October v. April yesterday after a bad throwing session? That's a conversation you have with your healthy pitchers who you know always get hurt in spring training. You call them in the office. You talk about what their spring training plan is. You talk about what your plan is for the season. If you're a Dodger, you know your plan includes an extra month of baseball. And you've said to the player, dude, you get hurt a lot. Here's how we're going to play it. If you feel a hangnail, I want to know about it. Because there are a bunch of pitchers who are gamers, not complainers, who don't tell you anything's wrong until you notice the velocity goes down. You notice a lack of command, and then you notice something's wrong with the mechanics, and then they say, yeah, I was hurting. There are a bunch of players who don't have long-term deals who are doing that. Players with long-term deals tend to go one way or the other. Either they complain with a hangnail or they don't say a word when they've got a hole in their elbow. But what we say to the player is, you got to communicate with us when you're Blake Snell because we need you in October. This is not some sort of April 24th epiphany that Dave Roberts had to sit down with Blake Snell and say, hey, this is about later in the season, man. We got to slow you down. It's totally preposterous. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 8-9 after that great 8-0 start. They have given up 9 runs in 2 straight games to the Cubs, the aforementioned Cubs, who have the biggest run differential. The fact of the matter is that the Dodgers would be considered one of the surprises in baseball to the downside. A 16-9 start is a start that many teams would love to have. But for a team like the Dodgers, it just doesn't feel as though that is the dominant team that we expected to have. But it's only 25 games. And you're getting a whole bunch of injuries in there that they should have expected, but may not necessarily have thought would happen this early. I'm going to give you a wait to see about Blake Snell, because I know how it rolls with an injury like this, and I know how the Dodgers are thinking and how Andrew Friedman is thinking. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. Blake Snell will not be back before the All-Star break.